Hey folks, my name is Johan and I'm a developer advocate from the JavaScript team here at Microsoft. In this video, we are going to build a server API for a to-do app using Node.js and Azure Cosmos DB for the data storage. We'll try to get some help from GitHub Copilot to speed up the process. So let's get started. So we're building this app implementing a to-do list application in Node.js, and it's built using the Express framework and TypeScript. We want to connect it to a database and deploy it to Azure using Azure App Service for the host and Azure Cosmos DB for the data storage. The application is mostly done, but we need to create a data service to talk to Azure Cosmos DB so we can store and retrieve the data. We'll also complete the implementation of the API endpoints and set up the CI/CD pipeline to first create the Azure resources and deploy our application to Azure using GitHub Actions. If you'd like to follow along this video, you can open this link to the tutorial or click on it in the video description. So now, let's do it. So we'll start from this GitHub repo template. The first thing we want to do is to fork it so we can make changes on our own GitHub account. The two things that you need to do to follow along this tutorial is a GitHub account and an Azure account, and you can create both for free. You have all the links in the tutorial that's linked in the video description. So now that we have our own copy of this repository, we'll select the code button and create a code space. So what's a code space? A code space is a fully prepared dev environment that you can use right from your browser. So there's nothing that you have to do to set up. It comes with the right Node.js version and everything you need to build and work on the project. And it's basically your regular VS Code, but right from your browser. So the first time you create one, it only takes a few minutes to set up, and then you're good to work. Okay, so first, let's start with an overview of the project. So this project is built as an NPM workspace. We have two packages, one for the client that's built using Angular, but it's already done for us and we won't focus on this part for this video. And we have the server code inside there. You can see that where we have a few things done for us. We have the API routes with few stubs that we'll probably have to complete a bit later, and we already have a model for the tasks. So the first thing that we want to do if we want to add Cosmos DB support is to create a service, but first we have to install the package. So let's go to the server folder and run npm install Azure Cosmos DB. Azure Cosmos. Okay, so now what we'll do is create a new file. We'll put that in a service folder and we call it db.ts. Okay, let's try to implement our database service. First thing we want to do is import the Azure Cosmos DB SDK and task model. So okay, pretty straightforward for that. And next, what we want to do is maybe give Copilot a few hints that we want to create a database service class that wraps the Cosmos SDK using a URI and key from an environment variable. And we want to connect to a database that's named to-do and a task container. And of course, we want to have all the regular create, read, update, and delete methods for all the tasks. So let's see if we can get something useful from that. Okay, let's have a look in detail. So we have our class, we have a get task method, create, get a single task, update. So yeah, it looks pretty good. Maybe what we are just missing is a delete method. So let's see, maybe if, okay. So yeah, we take task ID and we update it. So yeah, you can see that just using a few commands, we can hint Copilot to help us with that. You can also see that we have a few things to fix. It's almost good. I would say that if we don't provide an endpoint and a key, it will be difficult to initialize our Cosmos clients. So maybe that the first thing that we want to do is check that the environment variable are set. So yeah, if there's no endpoint and key, let's just throw an exception instead of using an empty string. Next, let's take a look at the generating method. So we want to get all tasks from a user ID. So yeah, that's right. And you can see in the SQL query in there that we inject the user ID using this parameter instead of using like, a regular string concatenation or a string template, because we want to be sure that we avoid security issues by preventing SQL injection. So by using a parameter defined in there, it will automatically be escaped from any tentative of SQL injection. But if we would have used, for example, a template string, this could have led to some issues. So the first generated code looks good to me. Next, let's have a look here at the create task. It seems that we have an error because, yeah, it can be undefined. So yeah, when we create a task, we want to make sure that the task was created. So let's say that, yeah, if we don't have a resource in there, basically it failed. I believe it will be, yes, the same thing. If we cannot find a task for this specific task ID in there, maybe that, yeah, if we do not have a resources, yeah, let's just return null. Next, if you want to update a task, again, we have to make sure that the resource already exists. So yeah, failed to update tasks. And yeah, probably that we don't need to pass in the task ID in there because it will already be in the task, task.id, and the rest of it looks good. So yeah, thanks to GitHub Copilot, you can see that it's pretty straightforward. Using our client for Cosmos DB, you can just call regular SQL query. You can also have direct access to either create a task, get a specific task, update one or delete one. So now the next step is maybe add some documentation. So instead of this command, let's try adding something a bit more useful. So, okay, it's a service for interacting with the database. That seems obvious. So what we want to have is maybe a singleton. So this is a singleton class. Only one instance will be created. So right now, this is not so. We'll just take care of that later. So yeah, it uses Azure Cosmos DB to store tasks. And now let's just add more detail. Like, for example, that it's a class that has a constructor. Okay, it's public. It's a singleton. Maybe not an example, but maybe like, for example, let's define the property. And maybe the methods. And yeah, I think it looks good. So the next thing is to make sure that we only have one instance of this class created. So let's make sure that we add helper methods to create a singleton in there. So for that, yeah, we need to have like a private static instance of our class. And then, yeah, that looks good. We probably need a getInstance method that if our private instance is not declared, it creates a new one. So yeah, that looks fine now. And it seems that our work here is complete. The next step that we'll do is update the API routes. So now we need to go back here in this file where we define the API routes for our server. So for the first route, we want to retrieve tasks from a database. So maybe that the first thing that we want to do is, import our service. Maybe not all the methods, I would say. Let's import DB service from, okay. And now let's implement the first one. So we want to get the tasks from the database. So we want to call first our singleton method. Okay, we want to get all the tasks for specific user ID. Okay, so this one looks good. Next, we want to create new tasks in database. So again, let's retrieve our service instance and create new tasks. Okay, this one is good. Now we want to get a specific task from a database. So you know what it looks like. So okay, get instance. No help this time. So we want to get a specific task using task ID. Okay, and finally for updating. Okay, this one is when we want to check that a task has been completed. So we need two steps. First, retrieve the existing tasks. So let's get the instance. Let's get the task. Task is possibly null. Oh yeah, let's change that just after that. And let's make sure that we also update the task. So get instance, update task, and we need to pass in the task in there. Okay, so we'll probably have to go back to the get tasks method and make sure it always return a task. So if there's no resources, what we want to do is just, throw an exception. So we make sure that either retry the task or either will spawn an error. And finally, let's delete a task in the database. So again, database service, get instance, and delete task for specific ID. And with that, we should be good. We've connected our database service that we created right before into our API routes. With, minimal error handling in there. We could have been more detailed, but let's see first if it works. So the next step is that since we've completed the implementation of our server, we want to try to deploy it to Azure. So the first thing we need to do is set up the credentials for our repository to be able to create resources on Azure and also set up some secrets. So we've created, let's open a new terminal at the root of the project. We've created this setup bash script that will do a few things. First, log us into Azure. So let's just do that. And now I'm logged into Azure. And I need to select the correct tenant. So this is the 31 I want to use. Yeah, this is the subscription I want to use. Next, we need to log in to GitHub. Yes, we want to authenticate with our Git credentials. Let's log in again. And now we are authenticated to GitHub. And we'll set up some credentials. We'll create a service principal. So we allow the GitHub action to make changes to my Azure account. And yeah, we're done. We set up the Azure credential secrets. So now GitHub Actions can access my Azure subscription and create, delete, and deploy applications to it. So this was just a prerequisite. What we need now is to create our actual CI/CD workflow. So to create our workflow, let's create a new file from the root. It needs to be put into the .github/workflow folder, and we'll call it deploy.yaml. Okay, so now again, let's use Copilot to try to accelerate the process. So we want this workflow to be using Node.js 20, and we want it to, let's just say we want to build the application, log into Azure with Azure credentials, and run some Azure CLI commands. So let's start with that. So yeah, Node.js CI/CD. We want this workflow to be triggered every time changes are made to the main branch. So yeah, let's create jobs. First, a build job that will run on a Ubuntu machine. And yeah, check out the repo, set up Node.js. Let's run npm install test. We don't have test for now, so we'll probably take care of that later. And next, for the deployment, first we need to build our application. Then we want to log into Azure using the CLI, and then run some scripts. So we'll go back to it. So the workflow looks fine to me. Maybe what we'll do is just bump a few action version in there, like use the latest for everything. And next, let's try to be more precise, more clear with what we want to do. So the first thing we want to do is create a resource group. So resource group is basically a folder for all your Azure resources. So, okay, using Azure CLI, we create this resource group in the US. Next, let's set up Azure Cosmos DB account using the default SQL API. So it creates my Cosmos DB account, the same region. Yeah, maybe we don't need. Well, let's just keep it for default for now. We have our Cosmos DB right now. What we want to do is now create a database that's named to-dos with our collection. So again, let's get some help from Copilot. Database create, name to-do in our resource group. Now for container, again, using the database name to-do, we want to create a tasks container with this partition key. So yeah, this looks good to me. Next, we want to create and deploy our web app using Node 20. Is there maybe another subjection? I think there's the nup command using web app up. Maybe let's try. Okay, easy web app name. Let's use something more specific because it will also be used to create a URL. So it needs to be unique within Azure. So I'll add some of my initials inside the resource group we created before. Let's use the basic tier. And we set up our runtime. So for now, this should create all the necessary Azure resources, but also deploy our web app. The last thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that our web app has these environment variables that we need to access our Cosmos database, so the Cosmos endpoint and Cosmos key. So first, this is exactly what I was going to do. So let's retry first the Cosmos endpoints. So, okay, Cosmos DB endpoint. Okay, I'll trust you for that. Retrieve Cosmos key. Same thing. We want to retrieve the primary master key. And next, this is exactly what I was going to do. And we need to update the web app settings. So we need to set the app settings for, this is the correct name, correct resource group. And yes, the only thing that maybe we want to be sure is that we want the output of this command to just be nothing, because this will end up in the GitHub action logs. So we want to make sure that our Cosmos DB key doesn't end up in the logs. Now our workflow seems complete. Let's just try to simplify it. We actually don't need to do the build and deploy steps into two separate jobs. Let's do a new one. We'll call it deploy. That will basically build and run, just deploy the application. And now let's commit everything. Let's put commit message, push it to our repository. And now you can come back to your GitHub repo, switch to the Actions tab, and you can see that the workflow is running. So if we select the deploy job in there, you can see all the logs, just in case something goes wrong. So let's just wait a few minutes to let the workflow complete, and we'll see if everything works. Okay, so now the deployment is complete. We should see the link to the deployed version here in the logs. So here we have our to-do application. So let's see if it works by adding some tasks. For example, buy milk, complete the video recording. Okay, seems to be fine. Let's try refresh the app. And here we still have our save tasks. So it seems that the database integration is working. Thanks for watching along. And here you'll find a few resources that you may find useful if you'd like to give Cosmos DB a try for free without even the need for an Azure account. You'll also find again the link to the tutorial that will walk through all the same steps that I did in the video with even a few extra.